Welcome. When my mom gathered us last July to tell us about her devastating and shocking diagnosis of pancreatic cancer, the first thing she said was, "I want you to write my eulogy before I die, and I want to read it." But as the months passed and her cancer progressed, I never could find a moment to sit down and write her eulogy. At first, I blamed her numerous doctor's appointments for my omission, then the constant pull of my own children, and the busy hum of caring for my mom herself. My belief that my unrelenting schedule was to blame morphed into an aching fear that I was unable to write her eulogy due to procrastination. This felt all the worse because the specter of death is not something to procrastinate about. But as the months wore on and I could not once find the time to sit down and write, I began to suspect that my mom had charged me with an impossible task. My inability to honor her last wish was not procrastination at all. To eulogize her life before she was actually gone would be to put an ending on something that was not over. Even in her sickness, her resolve, her peace with her diagnosis, her pride in her life's accomplishments, her love for her family, and her grace when confronted with the profound disappointment of not seeing her grandchildren grow up. Was like looking right into something so bright. Its only comparison would be as if you were to peer directly at the sun. Even in sickness, her being was so primal, it was impossible to look at it head on. To eulogize her life before she was gone, I realized, would be to put a period where only a comma should live, to stop her story before the afterglow of her life could take root would be unfair to a profound legacy. To know my mom was to know a woman who could do it all before women knew they could do it all. My mom was born in 1951 in Tehran, Iran. She was the first girl in a family of 8 children. She was born into a world of privilege, but was taught self-reliance at an early age. She had 2 older brothers and was told by her parents that she could do anything her brothers could do, including studying in the United States for university. She was the original superwoman before the phrase existed. Her life was the stuff of Hollywood movies in the early 1980s. Think Sigourney Weaver in Working Girl, or Diane Keaton in Baby Boom. My mom was the only foreign-born woman in corporate executive 1980s St. Louis that was armed with an MBA. She was even more cutting edge because she decided to have 2 children and continue working while also making dinner every night and making sure we practiced the violin. When the rat race of corporate America stopped making sense with 2 young children at home, she became a small business owner and later reinvented herself to become a commercial real estate broker, a job she truly loved. She would want you all to know she continued doing deals, going to her office just days before her death. In the soft arts, she was just as skilled. She had no degree in the art of living, but she knew how to live. Whether it was throwing the perfect party, buying the best tailored suit, or cooking the tastiest and healthiest meals, she approached all with intuitive gut intelligence and a love of beauty. My mom's inner life was a study in self-improvement that mirrored her exterior accomplishments. In the last 20 years of her life, she became a voracious reader. She had said she had regretted not being encouraged to study the humanities because there was such an emphasis on math and science when she grew up in Iran. However, around age 50, she sat down to read all of the Western canon and then branched out into history and fiction. She also began keeping a journal because she noted that her friends who she admired, you know who you are, kept journals of their thoughts, and she would too. On the physical front, Lily mastered tennis in her 40s, Pilates in her 50s, and took up biking and running in her 60s and 70s. after never having done any sports as a child. Lily's advice to family and friends was a stuff of legend. My mom was the only parent in my group of friends whose opinion anyone cared anything about. 2,000 miles away from St. Louis at Pomona College in California, circa 1999, What Would Lily Do, otherwise known as WWLD, was a constant discussion among my circle of friends when presented with a difficult situation or a moral conundrum. For the record, Lily would not put up with being treated poorly. Never. She would guard against the freshman 15. Certainly no drugs, no alcohol, no tattoos, no living with a boy unless you were engaged. And as for marriage, never marry an ugly man. Because if you get divorced, your children will be destined to look like him. And then you will be cursed with ugly children for the rest of your days. The Americanized, softer version of this, discussed with friends, was updated to never marry a man that you think is ugly. But this kinder version was not true to the true reading. For Lily, beauty was not subjective, but concrete. All the decisions you make do matter. Certain things cannot be undone. There was a morality in every choice you made. There was a right and wrong that was absolute. And the right choices were always the hard ones. If something was too easy, be highly suspicious. It was bad for you and it would not last. If she thought you had made the wrong decision, she would let you know and try to change it, often by brute force. In the 5th grade, when I decided I was not good at math and could not seem to master the material, she kept me awake until 3 a.m. to show me how to study and would not let me stop my practice until there was no ink left in my pen. I aced the test and learned that I too could work hard and achieve results. Her methods worked, and her example has been a blueprint for me to this day. Lily was not good at everything. She could not delegate a task. If you had something important to do, she would most likely not trust you to do it. She had high standards and the wisdom to know not just anyone could meet them. After my mom passed away, I took my children to a barber to get their hair cut. I realized I'd never taken any of my children to get a haircut, and my oldest child is 8. I never cut my children's fingernails or their toenails because my mother had always done this for me. When Christmas came this year and my mother was too ill to shop, I bought my children's holiday clothes, and I had the revelation that I'd never bought my children holiday clothes, or really any of their clothes at all. I never purchased holiday decorations for my home, such as wreaths or Easter eggs, Christmas crackers, nothing. When I hosted Thanksgiving dinner last fall, I realized it was the first holiday meal that I had cooked without her guiding hand. The list of things I never did, because my mom would do them before I could even think them, is long. More examples: cooking Persian food, buying Persian carpets, planning my wedding, roasting a rack of lamb. If you are here today, you are part of an elite club. You have met Lily's exacting standards. She had no time for lazy people, for unkind people, for boring people, for people who did not think deeply about what mattered to them and what they were about. She wanted to be there for what was best in everyone, and she would accept nothing less. She felt that it was every person's responsibility to do the best with the gifts they had been given and push themselves every day to reach their goals. She would not accept failure, even if you were not sure you yourself were up to the challenge ahead. She saw the greatness in each of you. She is a standard against which we measure ourselves. She is a standard against which I measure myself. I know that I might always come up a bit short. However, knowing my mom was to know that wasn't the point. The point was the striving, the journey to continue to keep going until the ink runs out. In closing, I want to share with you one of the last things she told me after 10 long months of her sickness. She started by talking to me about all the letters and the calls and the texts she had received, all the food, all the invitations. Krista, until I got sick, I never knew how much love there was in the world. Thank you for showing my mother and our family that love and continuing to be there for us and be here today.
I like rice. I really like rice. It's my favorite food. Although, truth be told, I would never say no to a potato. I've never met a potato I didn't like either. But the best rice in the world, and I mean the best rice, was the rice that Lily cooked. I don't know what she put in it. I don't know if it was saffron or turmeric that turned it yellow. I don't know if it was butter or olive oil that she used so that it would have that wonderful crispy crust. But one thing I know is that it was made with love. Her beloved nephew Tavan said at her 70th birthday that Lily's love language was advice, which was brilliant. But I think just as she was bilingual in English and Farsi, she had another love language as well. And that love language was caring and feeding people. Because her heart and her table were always open to friends and strangers. But I'm actually not here just to talk about carbohydrates. I want to talk about Lily as a volunteer. She was such a passionate volunteer. When she took on a task, get out of the way. It didn't matter if that wasn't her job. If she thought it needed to be done, it was going to be done. A great example was the Burroughs was going to have a party for all the people who had given generously. And Lily thought, they're already givers, let's ask them again. Which you're not supposed to do when you have a stewardship event. But it didn't matter. Lily was right. She raised another $35,000 for Burroughs. Another example of Lily's just fierce passion for children, for kids that are not being taken care of, was beginning the Voices for Children Gala. She had never put on a gala, lots of parties, lots of great parties we've all been to. But the first year, which was many years ago now, she raised $100,000. And that was when $100,000 was a lot of money. But she raised money for many groups. She cared about Doctors Without Borders. She was a political advocate. She cared about her clients. And the bottom line is, when Lily asked, you gave, or your life wasn't worth living. Her heart was so open, and she was such a passionate volunteer. And to say the word volunteer doesn't even begin to describe the work that she did, because she took it on with zeal and purpose, and there was nothing lackadaisical or in any way without passion. And so we say goodbye to our dear Lily. We say goodbye to wonderful meals with her and holidays. I always knew that no matter what, I was welcome at her house. And Krista said the same thing to me after my husband died. We will miss her passion. We will miss her advice, whether asked for or not. And we'll miss her rice.
When great trees fall, rocks on distant hills shudder. Lions hunker down in tall grasses, and even elephants lumber after safety. When great trees fall in forests, small things recoil into silence, their senses eroded beyond fear. When great souls die, the air around us becomes light, rare, sterile. We breathe briefly, our eyes briefly see with a hurtful clarity. Our memory, suddenly sharpened, examines, gnaws on kind words, unsaid, promised walks, never taken. Great souls die, and our reality, bound to them, takes leave of us. Our souls, dependent upon their nurture, now shrink, wizened. Our minds, formed and informed by their radiance, fall away. We are not so much maddened as reduced to the unutterable ignorance of dark, cold caves. And when great souls die, after a period peace blooms, slowly and always irregularly, spaces fill with a kind of soothing electric vibration. Our senses restored, never to be the same, whisper to us, they existed, they existed. We can be and be better, for they existed.
My name's Halliday Douglas. I am not wearing black, and I'm not wearing a formal shirt. I'm sort of blending the seasons here because I think Lily would have appreciated that. She loved life, but she also loved formality. I'm going to get out my glasses because apparently turning 40 is like the work of old people. So when I think of Lily, I oftentimes think of Lily in the context of our texts, our calls, and our conversations. And they always included or involved like a flurry of questions. They were always hers first. They kind of went like this. Are you okay? Where are you? What are you doing for work right now? So successful, very good. You in a relationship? I have someone I want you to meet. I met them at this banquet, and they are very involved in the community. You need to meet them. Let's do lunch. When are you coming over? We can also go out. Whatever you want. Where do you want to go? Good. So that was the start of our conversation, and then it was my turn. And I would say, yes, Lily, I'm doing okay. Just lots of problems of privilege right now. I'll be back in town, X date. I'm working at place Y. I'm not in a relationship, but the sex is good. Okay, I'll text you sometimes. She was so quirky, so direct, so unapologetically authentic. Lily always chose curiosity and connection over her fear of giving offense or even being offended. When I met Lily, she believed in the American dream, a dream that espoused the idea that if you work hard, you will be prosperous in life. And that also carried the inherent fiction that those who were not prosperous were either not working hard enough or they maintained values that were not aligned with the trajectory of prosperity. At the same time, Lily also believed in that education was key to one having the opportunity to live their best life, and that far too many people, especially Black and brown people, don't have a fair and equitable chance to access high-quality education. In short, Lily was multitudes. When Lily and I met some 28 years ago, she was a libertarian with one of the biggest and most open hearts I had encountered during my 9th and 10th grade years in high school. Thus, peculiarly, yet not surprisingly, throughout her life, Lily made it a goal to support my educational journey inside and outside the schoolhouse. She was intense, kept a beautiful home, raised and cared for a beautiful family, and increasingly expanded out her notions of family to include a kid like me. Our journey together was one of the very best compositions of fear, conflict, connection, and love. Gratefully, over the years, I have gradually come to realize that I was one of Lily's bridges between community and family, between her social good works and her focus on raising children who would be set up for success and open to making the world a more kind and better place. As a teen, I remember her dragging me around town 2 or 3 times a month, showing me the ropes of her businesses and sharing her hot takes that range from how to be a successful entrepreneur and manager of people to wildly inappropriate details about the personal lives of her workers, which, to be fair, had been voluntarily revealed to her. I also remember, even as late as the age of 28, I think I was staying with them. I was visiting them from out of town. And I found myself sitting on a toilet that was equipped with a bidet. And it was absolutely life-changing. This woman liked nice things. And, it was a moment I really had to ask myself, what the hell am I doing with my life? I arrived at the conclusion that I need to go back to school, get my career and my professional problem-solving skills underway in earnest. That, of course, took me to Harvard and then UChicago over the course of the next 18 months, 2 years, to study education policy and performance management. Throughout it all, Lily and Bruce were among 4 families that supported my education and life transitions. I wouldn't be where I am today without Lily's care and contribution. To be clear and deliberate in one's actions, to seek constant self-improvement through reading, conversation, investment in the common good, and acts of volunteerism, to have a presence even without being present, to happen to life instead of letting life happen to her, and on the way, leaving the world better than how she found it. This was Lily. This did not mean she was an angel. But the dumb smile that seemingly always creeps across my face when I think of her, I think it's quite safe to say she was an absolute beautiful human. Like all of you here, I'll miss her. But I'm so grateful to have our memories. And family, now and in the later.
Good afternoon. With everything going on in the world this weekend, military parades, protests, geopolitical chaos, you could say Lily picked quite the quiet moment to be remembered. Or maybe it's that we need this moment to remember someone who stood for decency, attention, and grace when the world feels like it's spinning fast in the other direction. Before I launch into the body of my speech, I want to mention that when I was a kid growing up, we would visit the Ladue Racquet Club, and they had an all-whites clothing policy. And this was, in the age of Andre Agassi, and he was half Iranian, and I'm half Iranian. So I would always put on a little splash of color and try to go there, or wear a bandana and go in there and buck, whatever Lily's advice to me was. And she let me get away with it, quietly. And as Halliday was mentioning earlier, he's wearing color. And, I think Lily would have wanted this to be memorable, joyous occasion that those of us who are wearing pops of color, even though here I am bucking the trend again and wearing black, but she would have absolutely loved it. And whatever emotions you're feeling, she would have sat with you and would have enjoyed hearing your emotional state. For every occasion, Lily always knew the right thing to wear, the right gift to bring. She always knew the right thing to say. Here we find that Lily is the occasion, and she would have loved having us all gathered together. I want to start with something simple. If Lily were here today, and I believe in many ways she is, she would be deeply happy that you came. And not just in a general way. She would have wanted to touch base with each of you. Ask how you're doing. Ask about your family. She would have remembered something personal about your last conversation and followed up on it. She made people feel remembered, known, seen. That was Lily's gift. She lived with presence, and she gave it generously. And she did it not out of impulse or performance, but from a deep sense of duty. And here's something I've been thinking about. This dynamic we are often faced with, that of authenticity, or being true to ourselves, and duty, or doing what's right in our role toward others. It might not just be personal, it might also be cultural. In many ways, it reflects a larger paradox between Western values that emphasize self-expression, I'm simplifying Western values, and Eastern values that emphasize obligation, sacrifice, and relationship. And maybe Lily's approach to life had something to do with her Persian roots. And I wonder if Lily, through the way she lived, was one place where that paradox found a kind of resolution, not in theory, but in practice. She didn't separate who she was from what she owed others. Her duty was part of her authenticity. Her presence was principled. Her generosity had direction. She was, above all, dutiful in a way that was unshakable. She took care of things and the people who needed to be taken care of. She followed through. Her life wasn't guided by trends or moods. It was guided by a deep sense of what was right. And that rightness always involved people, her children, her grandchildren, her friends and community, her extended family. Whether she was making a phone call, hosting a gathering, learning something new, or writing a letter, her attention always had direction. Even near the end of her life, she began to ask people to write her letters, not texts, not even phone calls, letters, something that took time, that required presence. And I'll be honest, I was one of the people who texted and called. And if you're in that group with me, don't worry, she understood. She knew where you were coming from, but for her, it was about something deeper, something that felt real. When I was 4 or 5 years old, I would spend summers with Lily and Bruce, Krista and Leela. My dad would send me from Houston to St. Louis, and those summers became part of the fabric of my childhood. I felt completely taken care of. One weekend, Lily asked me what I wanted for dinner, and without hesitation, I said kebab, which in respect may have been a bit of a stretch. I don't think she had ever made kebab before, but she went out of her way to make it because I asked, because I mattered to her. That's the kind of love she gave, attentive, earnest, present. That is the love that she gave to our family. She made us feel special and important, but she also encouraged us to do more, to be more, in a way that sometimes felt pressured, but also in a way that made us feel trusted and loved. Now, of course, Lily didn't do all this alone. Together, Lily and Bruce created a kind of anchor in our family. They were a team, a partnership built not just on love, but on shared values, family, responsibility, showing up for others. Now, getting back to that theme of authenticity and duty, what I admire most and what I'm still trying to learn from is how Lily didn't see those as opposites to be balanced. She wove them together. Her sense of purpose wasn't abstract or performative. It showed up in her actions and in the way that she lived. She didn't just go looking for ways to express herself. She simply lived out her values day by day, consistently and deliberately. That was her form of self-expression, living with integrity, showing up and doing what mattered. And I'll be honest, that's something I wrestle with. I often feel pulled between different values, different obligations, different versions of what I'm supposed to be. I don't always show up the way I want to. Sometimes I hold back my attention or my time. Sometimes I feel stretched too thin between duty and something else that matters to me. Maybe you feel that way too. But Lily seemed to live in that space with clarity. She chose over and over to give, not when it was easy, but when it mattered. She was, in that sense, the most authentic kind of person, not because she did whatever she felt, but because she stayed true to what she believed, even when it cost her something. That kind of authenticity, the kind that radiates through care, through attention, through showing up, that is what brought people close to her. That is what filled her home and her life with meaning. Earlier, Leela read Maya Angelou's poem, When Great Trees Fall, a poem I didn't know she and Krista had chosen until I arrived to St. Louis this weekend. What's remarkable is that it's the very same poem I had independently chosen to express how I had been feeling after Lily's passing. That overlap says something. It speaks to how deeply this poem captures what so many of us are experiencing. And there's one line in particular that stays with me. Our reality, bound to them, takes leave of us. That's exactly how it feels right now. But it also reminds us that with time, quote, our senses whisper to us, they existed. They existed. We can be and be better, for they existed. That's the invitation Lily leaves us with, to notice each other, to care deeply, to do the thing that needs doing. That's how Lily lived, and that's how we carry her forward. Thank you.
I wasn't fortunate enough to be born into Lily's family. However, she drew us in. I remember when I first met her, and when was that? And how did that happen? We kept thinking, my husband and I kept saying, how long ago was that? I think it was in a coffee shop in the midst of time on a Saturday morning when we'd gather as random groups and be joined by other friends. And pretty soon, over a year or so, the group grew to be 15 people. St. Louis dynamic. Wherever you go, there's someone you need to see. My first impression of Lily was, who is this woman? First of all, she was never still. Even when she was sitting, she was in motion the whole time. And she was a force. There was no getting around Lily's questions, ideas, opinions. She was a portal for me into a world I didn't have any notion of at all. She understood business in a way that is not me. And I thought, really? That's how you think about your workers? But over the years, I saw that practicality and that straightforwardness was generated by her generosity and her willingness to pay attention to everything. She was in charge of herself and everybody she was responsible for. I was trying to think of images of Lily. I can't come with many that she's sitting still. However, over the years, we developed into theater mates. 4 of us would go out to the rep and go to Cyrano's for treats and discussion. And I discovered that even though she had fixed ideas about, say, the business world, she was really open to discussion about anything. We had long conversations about education because that's what I knew. And she was generous with changing her mind and trying to figure out how everything fit together. It is through her generosity to Voices for Children that I was drawn in to become a court-appointed special advocate for foster children. I never would have done that. I wouldn't have even known about it, except that Lily invited us to understand it and to get to know it. So, at 9/11, The word on the street was, "How are your people?" Our daughter was in Boston at the time, and their friends were saying, "How are your people?" in St. Louis or wherever they were. And I would say that Lily drew us in, and we are her people. We're from Houston, Seattle, St. Louis, Iran, and there are subsets. There are coffee people, there are biking people, there's real estate, there's community outreach, and there's the time that it takes to develop those friendships. She had a gift. And when I was younger, I didn't realize what a gift this was. But now I'm old, and I can see it. She had the gift, the ability to enjoy life. She did have no impediment to action, and all the images I have of her are dinners and gatherings at the Oxford with Lily in the kitchen directing everybody. For her having showers or impromptu dinners with the visiting relatives. Every once in a while on Sunday morning, they'd come at our door, and Bruce and Lily would be in their spandex and bikes saying, "Want to chat?" I like that. When she came to that, she also deadheaded my geraniums, which was very nice too. She understood gardening is not my thing. So I will miss her tremendously. But she has informed all of us, and she's changed me and my husband and my child in a lot of ways that she probably will never see, because your reach goes far beyond what you're aware of, and hers is really broad. Thank you.
This is what happens when you come late, which Lily didn't like. I'm a guy who's lived in St. Louis City for a really long time, back before Pruitt-Igoe. And when Lily and Bruce got to the Oxford, which brought them to a neighborhood where I was living at the time, Bruce became my bicycling buddy, and we biked thousands of miles a year together for what seems like 20 years. But when I first met Lily, hers was, people said I should meet you. And I said, okay. She says, "So what do you do?" I said, "Well, I'm a citizen busybody." Yeah. "And what do they do?" I says, "I'm an old drug pusher in the neighborhood, and everybody thinks I can help." So, as you all know, she asked me all those questions that others have spoken about. But then she met my wife, and she understood how my wife got along with the smart aleck guy on the third floor. And we got to be, which I've said to some of our friends, a really tight family. My wife, Carolyn, and Lily became girl mates like no two other women for roughly 20 years. And to show you the power of Lily, my wife, Carolyn, passed 6-7 weeks ago. I don't remember exactly. And Lily got off of her sick bed. I want you all to know that's the strength of Lily in her last 3 weeks, and gave the tribute which exalted my wife and impressed all the people in my senior citizens building. Lily got off of her sick bed to do that. And I have never forgotten. And in the week ensuing my wife's passing, Lily gave me ideas about what should happen in a celebration of my wife's life. And I was too weak, I had no idea. So the social worker at the senior building arranged it. And I thanked her a month later. But Lily was guiding, supporting, directing, if you will, to the end. And I'll give you all a chance to laugh about two grown men. Bruce and I didn't visit each other for 2 or so weeks after Lily passed. But we met and had breakfast one morning at one of the big places where you eat a lot, talk a lot. And here's two guys talking, and both tearing at the same time in our breakfast. So we all miss her so very much. And my boys wanted to know at one point, is it Carolyn or Lily you're talking about? So there we are. I'm glad to be here. Sorry I'm late. I'm glad you all got to meet Lily also. Great woman. Great woman. Thank you.
As we bid farewell, let us be confident and trusting that a human life is full of meaning and purpose, even in death. For human life is a sacred thing. Its beginning is sacred, its span of years is sacred, and its ending is sacred too. Let Lily's name be inspired on the tree of life and inscribed forever. Amen and blessed be.